Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. So welcome to PBF3013 Insurance Planning and Takaful class. As you can see, this is actually a module 2 under the MFPC RFP program, Risk and Takaful Planning. So you will get exemption for this module once you completed and passed this course. Alright, so my name is Dr. Hazianti. I will be teaching you for this semester and I will cover both Group A as well as Group B. So as you can see from the slide, I am also a Sharia and financial planner as well as the RFP. I am also a certified Sharia RFP trainer and also the Sharia RFP examiner. And I am also a member of examination board of MMPC. So this is my email as well as my mobile number for your reference. All right, so I will go straight to our course info. So this is PBF3013 with a 3 credit value. And so that's my name there. And a prerequisite for this course is actually Fundamental of Financial Planning, Asas Perkhidmatan Keuangan, PFM3013. So I'm sure everybody has taken and passed this course because that is actually your module 1. And here with me, you're doing module 2. So for the first week, I'm going to go through our course info and you will see here, you can see here our course learning outcome, as well as our teaching methods and also assessment. So as you can see here, in this subject, we are going to look at the concepts and principle of insurance and also Takaful. And then we are going to analyze the different types of insurance and Takaful. And for CLO 3 and 4, we will focus more on your effective teamwork as well as ethical characteristics and also your social responsibility in sharing information. All right, so we are going to have a lecture. And for the first 4 weeks, we're going to have an online lecture. And you will be assessed based on a test, final exam, as well as group assignments. But under this part of the group assignments would be marks coming from your quizzes as well as forum questions. All right, so these are our program learning outcomes. And I think by now you are already familiar with our program learning outcomes for this PE14 program. And I will go straight to our course content outline. As you can see here, the first week, which is this week, we're going to look at the introduction to basic concept of risk. So you're going to learn about the fundamentals, the concepts, the classification, as well as attitude toward risk. So the next week, we're going to look at risk management. And we cover all the objectives, process, as well as the benefits of risk management. And then in week 3, we're going to look at insurance needs analysis. Right? So this will involve some calculations on your part. And then we'll go straight to life insurance. So here you will learn about the basics, the types, and also what is actually covered under a life insurance topic. After life insurance, we are going to look at medical and health insurance. So here you will learn about the different types of insurance and medical insurance, the health insurance, the benefits, because some of the medical and health insurance, they also have a portion for protection, right? So here you will learn about all those things. And then we're going to look at general insurance. So the difference between these three, for the life insurance, this actually covers the life of the policyholder. And then for medical and health, definitely based on the name, this will cover medical as well as the health of the policyholder. And the third one here, the insurance, the general insurance product, this is where, so for those of you with, you own a motorcycles or a car, so you have, you got to have your insurance. So that is actually a general insurance, general insurance, motor insurance, property insurance. And then after we learn about the different types of insurance products, we're going to look at the limits to insurability, which means what are the limitations of the insurability or of risk and also the exclusions. Right, so after the semester break, then only we will look at Takaful. Right, so Takaful is basically Sharia compliant insurance. Right, so there are some differences, a lot of differences between insurance as well as Takaful. All right, so in week 9, inshallah, we're going to compare the difference between Takaful as well as insurance in terms of contract, in terms of legal framework, in terms of Sharia advisory, yeah, as well as the terminology as well. Then in week 10, we are going to look at the different family Takaful products. So this is quite similar to life insurance for family Takaful. And then we will also cover the general Takaful products. For the last 4 weeks, or for the last 2 weeks, we're going to look at the legal principles, the relevant legislation, as well as the industry code of conduct. And we also have a subtopic on SOCSO, which is the protection under SOCSO scheme. All right, the assessment for this course is 60% coursework and 40% for final exam. So you can see here for your test, 20%, a group assignment, 15%, and another group assignment, 25%. And your final exam would be 40%, a 3-hour exam. All right, so we have a special requirement and you have to pay close attention to this because for this course, in fact, for this program, for AE14 program, you are actually required to pass both the continuous assessment component as well as the final assessment component in the course. So what do we mean by that? For continuous assessment, you have to make sure you complete all coursework that have been assigned to you. If let's say I assign you quizzes, I assign you forums, I assign you assignments, you have to complete all those. Failure to complete will cause you to fail the continuous assessment component. So for the final exam component, when the student fails to the continuous assessment, the student will be prevented from sitting the final exam or the final assessment. And for the final assessment, you are required to attend the final exam and obtain the minimum passing marks that have been set for the course. So for this course, the minimum passing mark is C. So if you get C- and below, you have to do it again. All right, so a bit on our group assignments, but don't worry, I will share the details with you later in my guru. So just to share with you, the first one would be a 25% group assignment that will cover our CLO number 3 and CLO number 4. So you are required to do 2 things. One is to prepare a report to address the questions. I will list the questions later in my guru as well. And after you prepare a report, you are required to prepare a 15-minute group presentation based on the assignment. So let's say you have 4 in a group and you have to make sure that each member presents their respective sections. And you can utilize visual aids, charts, graphs to enhance the presentation. So you also have to have a bit of time for questions and discussion at the end of the presentation. But the detail will be discussed later. So the second group assignment would be a case study. So as you all know, we are learning about Takaful as well as insurance planning. So we need to understand the situation might be different based on different cases. All right, so for this week, I will go straight to topic 1, understanding risk. It's quite a short topic, just to introduce to you and to make sure that you understand before we move on to learning about insurance, learning about Takaful. You need to understand risk first. All right, so under this topic, we're going to cover the nature of risk, the implications, and the different types of risk. The factors that can influence a person's rational thinking, the relationship between demography and attitude towards risk, as well as to assess the risk tolerance of clients when they have different needs. All right, just take some time to read and understand the case here. All right, so as you can see here, we have Melly here, employed as a bank teller for a commercial bank. She is a single parent with 2 preschool children. Shortly after the bank opened on a Monday morning, two men with handguns entered the bank and went to Manny's window and demanded money. So when a bank guard entered the premises, one gunman became startled and shot Melly in the chest, and she died while being transported to a local hospital. So based on this case, we can say that this tragic and untimely death shows that we live in a risky and dangerous world. So not only that, the news media report daily similar tragic events. For example, we have a drunk driver kills 4 people in a van on a crowded highway. We have truck driver, trailer driver, and we also have flood destroys a small town. And people also experience personal tragedies and financial setbacks that cause great economic insecurity. For example, the unexpected death of a family head, the loss of a good paying job during our recent MCO 3 years back. All right, so what is risk actually? So we can say that risk is uncertainty concerning the occurrence of a loss. So when we talk about risk, we are normally talking about loss. So for example, risk of being killed in a car accident is present because uncertainty is present. So the risk of lung cancer for smokers is present because uncertainty is present. The risk of flunking insurance cost is present because uncertainty is present. And this is not to scare you, right? And then, like I said, when we talk about risk, we are actually referring to the occurrence of a loss. So loss exposure means there is a possibility of an occurrence of a loss. Right. So firstly, you need to understand the classification of risk. So in general, we can classify risk into 6 categories, 6 classification. Fundamental risk, particular risk, dynamic risk, static risk, pure risk, and speculative risk. All right, so the first one is fundamental risk and also particular risk. So these are actually the opposite of each other. So when we say fundamental risk, these risks actually affect the entire economy or a large number of persons or group within the economy. So for example, inflation. For example, here you can read in the news what happened to our ringgit. Okay, that is also considered as fundamental risk. Mass and unemployment during MCO last time. And the opposite of fundamental risk is particular risk. So when the fundamental risk affect the entire economy or a large group of people, particular risk only affect particular individuals. For example, robbery, right? Dynamic and static. Also, you can see that if we talk about dynamic risk, these actually result from the changes in the economy that may cause financial losses to people. Because of that changes, there will be a financial loss. So for example, risk arising from rapid changes in technology. So those behind the technology, they are going to face the risk of being obsolete, for example, in terms of technology. Static risk, losses that will occur even there is no changes in the economy. Nothing happened in the economy. Everything is going smoothly, all is well. But still there is a static risk. For example, losses from mismanagement, dishonesty. So these are static risks. Next would be pure and speculative risk. So pure risk, for pure risk, you need to understand when we talk about pure risk, there is only a possibility of loss or no loss. There is no possibility of gain. For example, probability of injuries in a road accident. So the probability is loss or no loss. You are going to be fine or you're going to be injured. There's no way you will be prettier or more handsome because of that road accident. The speculative risk, there is a possibility of profit or loss. Example, financial investment. Let's say if you invest in shares, there is a probability or possibility of profit as well as possibility of loss. But most speculative risks are actually uninsurable. We can only insure pure risk. That's when the situation is only loss or no loss, there is no possibility of gain. Other types of risk can be financial value and also non-financial value risk. So the name, as the name implies, financial value risk means the outcome can be measured in monetary terms. So for example, material damage to property. So we can put certain value, certain ringgit value to that damage. And next would be non-financial value risk. So in this case, the situation cannot be measured in monetary terms. For example, selection of career. Alamak, what I want to be when I graduated. So just select a career. That would be a non-financial value risk. Selection of restaurant menu. Sometimes you want to try new menu in that restaurant, but you are not sure whether the menu is good or not. So that is a non-financial value risk. All right, so if you look at these different types of risk, we have what we call as pure risk. All right, so I will explain more on pure and speculative risk. All right, so pure risk. There are three classes of pure risk. Again, pure risk, we talk about possibility of loss or no loss, no possibility of gain. All right, so the three classes of pure risk, first one is personal risk. So for personal risk, as the name implies, these risks directly affect an individual or a family. So what are the major types of personal risk? Number one, risk of premature death. If you look at the term, we use this as, in insurance, normally we use the term premature death, which means the death happens prematurely in accident, maybe, right? During accident at work, maybe, premature death. We can also say that premature death relates to a death that occurs when you still have financial liabilities, so premature death. And it can also be risk of insufficient income during retirement. Right, the cost of living now is very high. Some people keep telling that, and people want to increase their retirement age because of the insufficient income. I'm scared of the risk of insufficient income during retirement. Risk of poor health is also a risk, as well as a risk of unemployment. So this is a personal risk whereby we can always relate to the possibility would be loss or no loss. All right, property risk. As the name implies, property risk refers to persons owning property that are exposed to property risk. For example, risk of property damage or loss from numerous causes. It can also be a direct loss or indirect loss. So what are indirect loss? Indirect loss is a financial loss that results from the physical damage, destruction, or theft of the property. For example, house on fire, that would be a direct loss. Indirect loss, that results indirectly from the occurrence of a direct physical damage or theft loss. So if you look at this example here, for example, a house that is damaged by a fire, so the physical damage is a direct loss, a financial loss. We can quantify the financial loss. We can quantify the physical damage or the destruction. But you may also incur additional living expenses. For example, rumah dah terbakar kan, house on fire. So the person or the family needs to rent a hotel or rent a house while the house is being repaired. So these additional expenses is considered as indirect loss. So this is also under property risk. The third one is liability risk, also known as a legal risk. But this is only for applicable for professionals, because these are where we talk about the possibility of individuals' financial resources that may be diminished as a result of liability risk. So for example, doctors, lawyers, they can be sued by patients or clients because of act of malpractice. All right, so for business, they also have risk that is considered as commercial risk that can financially bankrupt the firm. So, and it will include the property risk, the liability risk, business income, and other risks. All right, we can categorize the risk behavior of an individual. All right, so just now you learn about, I'll go back here, you can see that we already learned about the different types of risk. But now we want to know the attitudes or the categories or the risk behavior of an individual. All right, so there are three types of risk behavior. I forgot to put this risk averse. So the first one is risk-taking or risk-seeking, or we call this group of people a risk-taker. Okay, a risk-taker group of people. So these people, the risk-taking or the risk-seeking individuals, and they normally perceive risk as opportunities rather than a threat. Right, so they like to take risk. For them, if you are familiar with the investment behavior, high risk means high return. Right, so these are the risk takers. And if you actually involved in a business, so this is considered as one of the most important criteria. You must be willing to take risk. The second category is risk indifferent. So for this risk indifferent group, they are neither influenced by danger nor the opportunity presented, which means they don't really care about the risk. If they want to do it, they do it. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. The risk does not play any role in their decision. So the third category is risk averse. So in this case, this is actually the opposite of the risk taker. So these people perceive risk as a threat and always focus on the loss potential. Okay, so again, when we learn about risk, eventually we have to learn about the human behavior, because for different people, they might have a different degree of risk tolerance. So for this part, the categories of risk behavior is also known as risk tolerance. So how do you tolerate certain risks? For example, if we go back to the non-financial value risk just now, the selection of restaurant or the selection of menu. So some people, when they go to the same restaurant, they will always order the same menu. Because why? They are afraid and they don't want to take the risk that, if they choose other menu, it might not be as good as the one that they are familiar with, right? So those are risk behavior or risk tolerance. All right, so how do we actually decide the human behavior and the degree of rationality? How do people actually behave and how do people actually decide? Are they risk taker? Are they risk indifferent? Or are they risk averse type of individual? Right, so normally the behavior and the degree of rationality, these are actually influenced by the individual's beliefs and also their value system. It can also be from being overconfident. All right, so some perspective or some people decide because of their personal judgment. Sometimes you can say that, oh, this one definitely will happen, 100% will happen. But maybe at some point that event will happen, but not 100%, maybe around 8%. So going back to the influence by the individual's belief and also their value system. So this is actually sometimes based on their emotions. Okay, not because of they want to follow rules or and now if you can see nowadays, I think a lot of decisions, a lot of situations are actually influenced by individuals' belief and their value system. So that is how they decide what they're going to do in taking certain type of risk or even in living their life. And the third one can be misled by a short-run trends. Okay, sometimes, especially in the stock market, sometimes when people see that, oh, the market is very good now because of the short trends, so you invest. But when you invest at the wrong time, and you will think that, oh, the trend will go away. Sometimes it can be misleading and misjudging the magnitude of risk. So this is normally happen when we, tend to overestimate the magnitude of risk. Sometimes we think that, oh, this is nothing. So, the risk is low, but the magnitude of that risk, sometimes we misjudge. Denial of risk, this is also another common attitude towards risk. Sometimes people who engage in high risk activity, they do not know the level of danger or they simply reject the possibility of a risky situation. So for those who, like to do adventurous activities, dangerous activities, sometimes they have this attitude called denial of risk. And the last one would be influence of bias attitude. So when we talk about bias, there are a few types of bias. So the first one, this is going back to our own behavior when we decide the degree of rationality and also the human behavior in order for us to assess individuals' risk behavior or risk tolerance. Right, so the last one is influence of bias attitudes, which means for the first one, where we have availability bias, which means that if there are certain events that can be easily recalled, those are actually often viewed as more probable to occur. So we have this availability bias. The second one is familiarity bias. And for the things that we are familiar, we are less feared. Because those risks that are known to us, we become less feared. Evidence bias, sometimes we seek evidence to support our action or belief. So when we say that is A, so we seek evidence and we find all the evidence to support that our answer is A. Right? And the last one is illusion of control bias, which means when you have certain type of control over situation, you will feel less fear. So those are the bias attitude that can eventually influence the human behavior or the degree of rationality, especially in taking risk, because here we are talking about risk. All right, so just now we've gone through the different types of risk tolerance, the risk averse, risk indifferent, and also risk averse. So how can we decide the person's risk tolerance beside looking at this human behavior and degree of rationality? So this is how people behave, and here is how people react toward risk. So there are some factors that influence based on some studies. So some are not really a well-known study, but some of the factors that can influence our risk tolerance would be, number one is age. So as the person grows older, there is a tendency to take less risk. So if you compare myself and yourself, and you are still young, you are willing to take more risk than I will, right? Because of the age factor. The second is gender. So this is easily explained because we can say that women are generally, in general, women are more risk averse than men. Okay, so studies have also studied that because of the environment, especially in Asian countries. So male is considered more risk taker than female. The birth sequence, also quoting Asian families, this might be different with Western culture, right? So you cannot apply this to the Western culture. This is generally in our Asian culture. So the birth sequence as well. So for the firstborn child, especially the eldest child doesn't not necessarily boy or girl or male or female, but as long as you are the eldest child, normally the eldest child in Asian family tend to be more risk averse. Because why? Because the eldest child has this attitude that he or she has to take care of the younger siblings, and they want to be a role model for the younger siblings. So they are more risk averse compared to the second or third or the youngest child. Marital status, okay, so generally single person are generally to be more risk tolerant, and they can tolerate more risk than those are married, especially those who are single with no or little responsibilities, and they are risk taker. And last one is occupation. So we can say that government servants are generally more risk averse than those working in the private sector. Okay, maybe due to the work environment and also the exposure, because the private environment engage people or person who are more who are willing to take more risk compared to a government job, which is considered as safe and secure. So these are the factors that affect the risk tolerance of an individual. Okay, so as a financial planner, All right, you later on, eventually you have to measure your client's risk tolerance. Right now, you need to understand your own risk tolerance, your own risk behavior, because your own risk tolerance and your own risk behavior might be different from the client's risk tolerance. All right, so how can we find out and how can we measure the client's risk tolerance? So there are two broad approaches. Number one is qualitative approach, we call it qualitative approach. This involve unstructured interview. So maybe you will get the information because on the knowledge of the clients as well as the skills and the experience. So this is actually for more experienced financial planner. So for a more experienced financial planner, they understand the client's risk tolerance better and they need the unstructured interview only. But for maybe for a young or maybe some financial planner, they need to do a structured approach, a structured format interview whereby you assess the client risk assessment using a questionnaire, a structured format, and ask question. And from the question, then only we decide whether this client is risk taker, risk averse, or risk indifference. All right, at the same time, in assessing the risk tolerance of clients, you need to understand their investment objectives. What are their investment objectives? It can be maybe is the client prefers liquidity, which means they want cash. They want more cash fast. So maybe the focus would be on liquidity, or whether they focus on safety. They want safe investment. You know, that they don't have to worry much. So they want safe investment. That can also be their investment objective. Or maybe they want capital appreciation. They don't want any headache thinking about when the price will go up, the price will go down. They just want capital appreciation. They put their money there and they wait. At the end of the year, they enjoy the dividend. So, for example, they need the capital appreciation only. Or again, it depends on the client investments objective. What do they prefer? So here, the financial planner will help establish the client's financial objectives as well by asking them questions. All right, and then the choice of investment vehicles. So you can see that if the clients, based on the products that the client choose, so we will know whether, you know, the client might choose shares, bonds, or real property, or derivatives. So we can assess whether they are more risk taker or risk averse. And also their past behavior pattern on their monetary risk. Whether the person focus more or think more about their finances or not. And we can also look at their current investment portfolio, if they have the current investment portfolio. So you can see if the person or the client mainly have investment like savings accounts, unit trust, deposits, and then we can assume that the client is risk averse compared to clients who invest more in, for example, share market. So they are more risk taker compared to clients who like to save in unit trust or savings account. Okay. All right, we can also assess based on the client's current liabilities to their gross assets. So if the ratio that we calculate indicates a large percentage of assets are leveraged with borrowings, so there is an indication that the person is a risk taker, and vice versa. Extensiveness of insurance policy. Once insurance policy is never enough, right? So along the way, you will understand and you will learn why I say one insurance policy is never enough. All right, so if the person have a safety mentality, probably he or she is risk averse. So they have a few insurance policies. So we can say that, oh, this person is a risk averse. Number of job changes. Risk taker lah, right? They like to change job. Okay, whoever can pay them more salary, they will go. So they are willing to take the risk. Next would be probability and payoff preferences. So this is related to the probability of loss and the probability of gain and the amount that they are willing to take as loss, a certain amount, their probability and their preferences. And last one is the preferences for certainty versus uncertainty. Some individuals, they prefer certainty. You invest in this, definitely you will get your money back. Certainty. Now you save money in fixed deposit, certainty. But if you invest money in share market, there is always a possibility of uncertainty, whether you will get your money back or not. So the preferences also will indicate the human behavior. So as a financial planner, you need to determine the client's risk tolerance by establishing the client's financial objectives. Why? Because it will be easier for you to make appropriate recommendations for the client's financial well-being. So in this module 2, this will be one of the recommendations that will be made to the clients, which is, do they need more insurance or do they need more Takaful policies to maybe help during their retirement later, or maybe help in protecting the family, right? So basically that is topic 1, and I hope that you can refer to these slides and maybe some textbook talking about risk management. Okay, so what I want you to do for this week, so these are the tasks for you for week 1 until week 3, 3 weeks, so during this Ramadan until Hari Raya. You have to submit Forum 1 and I let you do it until at the end of week 3. So now it's week 1, you have until at the end of week 3, considering the add drop factors and so on. And please join our WhatsApp group based on the link provided in my group. So all the communications will be done in WhatsApp group, and all the assignments, questions will also be provided in my group. All right, so thank you so much for your attention for today's video, and here is your attendance for week 1. So please scan the attendance once you completed watching the video. So for other information will be discussed and also explained in our WhatsApp group or in my Google portal. All right, so I will see you next week.